What's up, everybody? I'm Eddie Casillas from the Voodoo Glow Skulls. I play guitar. We're about to head to Australia November 27th to December 1st with our friends Hey Smith from Japan. We'll be playing at the Ska Nation Festival as well in Thornbury at I forget the name of the venue already. The Croxton Band Room, I believe.
Very nice place.
Yep, yep. And it's been a while. It's been about 10 years. We're excited to come back.
Beautiful, Eddie. Thanks for joining us today, brother.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So, as you say, Voodoo Glow Skulls return to Australia later this month for a run of shows starting in Adelaide on the 27th of November, and you hit Brisbane, Sydney, and finish with Ska Nation Festival in Colac on the 30th of November, mate. So, it's not that long now, mate. Are you packed already packed and ready to go, or have you got a few other things between now and then?
I have we have a couple of things. We actually have one main thing. We're playing at the Punk in the Park Festival in San Diego, California. That's our next thing, which is a week and a half away. The following Saturday, not this coming Saturday, but the following one. We're doing that in San Diego. Pretty stacked lineup, with some bigger bands like the Offspring and Pennywise. It's going to be a good one. That's the next one, and that sets us up right before Australia, which is 10 days after that. So I'll pack like the night or two before. It's such a short trip that I kind of have it down already. So I'll like the night or two before, as long as I have clothes washed, man, I'll pack quick for that
Okay.
one.
And on that subject, mate, like on Punk in the Park, like you're playing with bands like the Offspring and Pennywise. So where do you guys sit in the scheme of things these days with punk ska bands? Like are you the godfathers of the circuit or something like that? Like does everyone come to you for advice or you sort of sit in the middle? Like
It's always felt like we've been at least somewhere in the middle. We've always kind of managed to cruise through it all. It feels like, and I think as the band gets older and we're just around and we travel and stuff like that, I think people kind of catch on to the fact that we've been around for a long time and are for sure one of those bands, at least so I'm told. Yeah, I mean, you don't really go around thinking that stuff, and then all of a sudden, people tell you stuff like that. That you're OGs or that you're this or that, which is cool. I mean, it just means that we've gotten to be around for a long time, and I guess the test of time, so to speak. So we're it's just good to be in the mix, to do like to be able to do your thing that you created, yourself, and be able to be in the mix through all the comings and goings of bands and fads and like musical tastes and all that. What I mean? We just kind of try to have been able to cruise through it all and somewhat to me stay like right in the middle. And if not, we're usually build a little higher these days because we've been around the block, which is cool too. Of course, but we're like on this Punk in the Park thing. There's some bands that are younger that have you know had more success quicker, which is great. It's I mean it's anybody. I mean it's a big world out there, with a bunch of talent, and it's anybody's game. I mean, we're just glad to be a part of it and get to be like lumped in with some of the best bands still, or some of the best bands that get like chosen to be on these shows with these giants.
sure. Now, from my research, mate, it looks like this is going to be your first visit to Australia since 2013. So it's a long time between drinks, mate. Like, what's changed with Voodoo Glow Skulls from the last time you were out here?
Well, we had a bunch of band changes for sure, like a bunch of band personnel lineups. My older brother, the lead singer Frank, quit the band in 2017, so like only a few years after we were there last in Australia, and then is back now. Just came back recently again and rejoined at the beginning of October. So he's coming back to Australia with us. So he didn't miss any Australia. He's gonna get he just gets to jump right back in, and one of the first things he does is on Australian tour, which is great. But that's the major change, and we put out another record, with a different lineup, without my brother, which came out in 2021. So that's a lot of changes. That's a lot of things happening right there alone. And then besides that, we just kind of been everywhere. We've been traveling quite a bit. Did South America, did some Europe a few times. We went to Japan, so there's been a few things.
I don't want to go into the ins and outs of it too much, bro, but just with your brother leaving the band, like, how was that for you? Like, it's sort of not just like a bandmate leaving; it was the actual brother leaving. Did it sort of leave a bit of a hole for you?
Oh yeah, I mean I mean, of course, I mean it was a big deal, and it was one of those things where you get like a test. It feels like almost like a test. Well, it's like, what are you gonna do? Sink or swim? Are you gonna keep on doing what you've always done, or are you gonna hang it up and just retire? Which we were gonna do that. We were gonna hang it up and just kind of retire, like make an announcement when that went down, and then we had a friend of ours send us an email that was glad to step in, and somehow it worked for 7 years. But we were ready to stop. You know what I mean? So it did affect us, but we just decided to keep on going. Just it's like, well, just because one guy doesn't want to do it anymore, that you have to evaluate yourself and the people next to you and see if they want to continue and all that. But it did leave, of course, a big mark and a big hole. You know what I mean? That's family. That you see a lot more when you're traveling together and doing a band or a business together, or whatever it is. But it affected it for sure. You know what I mean? In many ways.
Now, you're coming out here with Japanese ska punk outfit Hey Smith, so it's not often you get an American band supporting a Japanese band in Australia. It's well done.
Yeah, yeah. They asked us to. That's just the way it was presented to us. We know Hey Smith because they actually brought us out to Japan at the beginning of their last Japanese tour to support their latest album. So we were there about 8 months ago with them, and did their first four shows of their Japanese tour, and then this was presented like, I mean, completely separate. We just got asked to do this by these Australian dudes, and they put it together. So it was their doing. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to go support them there. But I mean, it's not that far fetched. I mean, considering how the Japanese tour was, which is, I mean, it's their country and all that, but it was insane. Those guys are pretty big in their own country. I don't know about Australia if they're known at all, but it was pretty wild. So it made sense to support them there for sure.
And it's going to be their first time touring Australia, mate. So are you going to bring them up to speed on what to expect, or are you just going to sit back and laugh while they figure it out?
Well, I mean, they're I don't know if they understand me so much, man.
Language barrier.
Yeah, I mean, by the time the translation goes through, they'd already would have figured it out, or like learn the hard way, so to speak. But yeah, I think they'll be fine. I mean, these days with technology and all that too, they probably know more about Australia than we both do.
True that. So it has been a while since you've been out here, mate. So what can Aussie fans expect from a Voodoo Glow Skulls live show?
Well, right now, especially, we're just playing like what we consider like the classic songs. We're getting down to the meat and potatoes of what we would think people want to see from the band. You know what I mean? So that's the first thing is we're trying to hit up all the classic songs, so to speak, or the standout songs that people would expect from a show. And it's pretty high. It's pretty high energy right now. We have a good lineup right now. We have some good new horn players that are delivering the goods, man. That we rehearse with a lot. So that's exciting. Got a younger new sax player that's great, and kind of a virtuoso player, and same with a trombone player as well. And then as well as the rest of the band too, the core of the four piece of the band. We're we're pretty well rehearsed, man. We've been touring for a while without my brother actually. We were still rehearsing a lot and just got off a tour that I actually sang lead vocals on. So we've been rehearsed pretty well. When he jumped back in, it was still like a machine. He just jumped back in and did his part, which is like made it to me that much better. she got the original icing on the cake, you know.
Now, you actually formed Voodoo Glow Skulls in California back in 1988, mate. So, what was the musical climate like back then that gave birth to the band, and where did you fit in initially?
Well, we didn't really fit in at all initially because it was just a weird little band that from a small town in California. Um, Back then, the bands, well, I mean, we always looked west towards LA and Hollywood, which is only about 45 to 50 miles away from where we live. And that's always like those are always like the tastemakers, man. Like whatever's going on there, like from the Sunset Strip, like rock and roll, like hair scene, like in the 80s to like 80s punk rock to like 90s punk, you know, to I mean, we kind of got influenced by that whole thing, you know. I mean, by everything that was going on in LA at the time, you know, and throughout the years as we were growing up, and yeah, I mean, it's when we were starting our band though, there was like a trifecta of bands. There was like Fishbone, Jane's Addiction, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers were the bands that were like the bands that were coming up, that were getting big, that were starting to become like legends. That was around like 1990. You know, we had been around for about 2 years, and those bands were the bands that were just had hit hard, like between 85 and like 95. You know, so that was the three bands that kind of influenced a lot of bands in LA. And then at the same time, you had like the early 80s or like the mid 80s, early 80s punk rock scene, like you know, like No Effects and Bad Religion, you know, the Black Flag, the Descendants, you know, Fear, X, you know, you had all that stuff, you know, and then it kind of morphed into bands like Pennywise and all like the '90s stuff, you know, like the Epitaph Records stuff. So we were influenced by a lot of the stuff as we were becoming a band. You know, we were influenced by a lot of those different scenes. You know, what I mean, there was so much going on. I mean, there was so much to absorb. But the musical, I mean, there was no real ska punk or ska bands like that. There was like the ska band thing was still like you were still kind of a rarity. You know what I mean? There was like the Untouchables and Fishbone were the bands like in the 80s, and like Oingo Boingo was kind of like not really a ska band, but sort of parts, kind of elements of it, you know. But there was only, and I mean, there was like few and far between ska. You know, I mean, the Skeletones were a band from Southern California, from here, from our hometown. They were doing it then. No Doubt was doing it like in Orange County, and they were kind of more of a two-tone ska band then. They weren't like what they are now, of course. They didn't turn into like a funkier kind of pop band. You know, they were kind of doing more like trad, two-tone ska. So there was some, but it wasn't the same thing. You know, there wasn't really. It was just like the Boss Tones on the East Coast, and like Fishbone and Op Ivy, and like Voodoo and Skank and Pickle on the West Coast, maybe, and a few other sporadic bands here and there. But there was only like a handful. Whereas now, like the climate, at least for what we do, is I mean, it's everywhere now. There's just a Latino ska punk scene alone now, like in LA, that's like its own thing. You know what I mean? That there's at least like 25 to 30 bands that kind of do like Latin ska punk in some form. You know, whether it be more Latin tinged or more like heavy hardcore tinged. There's a lot of everything now. You know what I mean? So it's definitely changed. You know what I mean? Back then, like the climate was just kind of more like those alternative like the alternative band thing that I was saying, like more like Jane's Addiction and Red Hot and Fishbone, and then there was the '90s, like the late '80s '90s punk scene was kind of starting to kind of morph into its own thing. So yeah, it was different.
And like you've been there, like you say, since before ska punk was actually a thing to now. So can you sort of put your finger on at what point people actually started to get it? Like they started to really get into ska punk? Like what was the turning point?
I think it may have been like around when those bands like in the '90s had hits that were cross genre, worldwide type of hits, like when No Doubt had some stuff that was sort of like it wasn't exactly ska, but like you know, like the whole like the Tragic Kingdom album, the Sublime album. like the 40 Ounce of Freedom to the self-titled album. That's filled with ska type songs. You know what I mean? That I mean the boss tones, the impression that I get. Like what once you got songs that appear like on an airplane radio where you could listen to it like on a general station, like on the airplane or something. It's crossing it crosses over. You know what I mean? I think that may have been it. Is when ska became more of like this is like a genre now. This is a thing that people know. Whereas like back in like the UK, maybe like in 81 or 82, when like two tone was a thing, they may have had hits like in the UK and maybe had like kind of it might have crossed over into here like somewhat, but it didn't hit like the way it did like in the 90s to me. Like, the Boss Tones had a big hit. Like No Doubt had a big hit. I mean, even now like bands like the Interrupters, they're all over the radio. I mean, they're all over the radio now here, and that's K-Rock. That's a big station, that's still like for radio, that's an influential station, I mean? So there's always those ska bands now or a ska song that sneaks its way onto the radio because of the vibe that ska like that has. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, just say someone's coming along to the Scar Nation Festival or to see Hey Smith and they don't know too much about Voodoo Glow Skulls. What three songs of yours should they listen to prepare them for what's coming?
For Voodoo Glow Skulls?
Yeah.
Okay, they should listen to Shoot the Moon, El Kukui, and Charlie Brown. Those three being off our most popular record and kind of cover the styles the best. Like those three songs cover like they're similar songs, but not really. They kind of cover the styles within Voodoo Glow Skulls. You know what I mean? I think those would be a good example.
Perfect. Now, before we let you go, mate, we've started a new thing at Heavy called Photo Bomb. So basically, before I speak to you, I'll troll through your social media photos and I'll pick out a couple that I want to know a little bit more about. So I got the first one here for you. What's going on there? Is that guy trying to get on stage or is he getting aggressive or?
If I remember right, that's one of that is that the guy from Love Equals Death? That might be Ephraim's buddy. That's the former singer that we just had. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that might be the guy from Love Equals Death who I think just passed away, if I'm not mistaken. Like a month ago, which is kind of sad. But I believe that's the guy from Love Equals Death up in the front, just saying like, "Hey, I'm right here, but I'm watching your show," and he's just kind of acknowledging him.
Awesome. That's awesome. So on those lines, bro, like have you guys ever let anyone come up on stage and it's ended up in a total disaster?
Oh yeah, but well, not let up on stage, I guess. But we had a bouncer rush the stage in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and attack my brother, and then the whole audience attacked the bouncer, and that happened on the stage. But that was an unwelcome guy on stage. We've had, I guess, the funny things that have happened when we welcome somebody on stage, and it's been kind of a disaster. Is when we have this mascot that comes out that he wears like a big like a latex mask, you know what I mean? And it's the big monster head that's like a logo. It's sort of like Iron Maiden Eddie, like that type of thing. And we have this character that'll come out, and we usually have like a roadie or like a stagehand friend that'll just come out with a costume on, right? Like in the middle of the set. And we've made the mistake of letting like friends in the middle of the country, like on tour, do it, where by the time they get to the song, they're wasted and they can't do it, or they come on stage totally drunk and like mess it up, kind of. You know what I mean? So we've had that happen a few times, particularly in Texas.
Good old Texas, eh? And the
Yeah.
other photo I found is this one. Like, is that for real or is that photoshopped?
Oh no, that's for real. But what's great about that is she appears to be like diving off of the stage, and it's 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 her dad doing the thing where like they toss the kid up in the air and they
Ah,
catch him, because you see the hands right there. But I we just got it sent that as a screenshot, and we just thought it was awesome, and that's what was going on during our show. He was just throwing his kid up in the air like near the pit while we were playing, and somebody tagged us in that, and that was at Punk in the Park in Southern California. We're about to do one in San Diego, which is still Southern California, of course, but this is the one from about 2 years ago at Punk in the Park in Orange County.
Doesn't it warm your heart when you see kids that age and stuff like that at a gig? It's just
Yeah,
doesn't it?
because that kid will grew up going to shows like that, and who knows that kid will be going to shows when they're some married woman or something. That's how it is, you know.
Very good. And one little final thing before we let you go, mate. I'm assembling a bit of a collage from bands that have been around for a while. But when you guys do decide to call it a day, one day, hopefully a long way in the future, but what would you like the inscription to be on your musical tombstone?
Oh man, let's see here. That's a hard one. Probably be what we it'd be like we came, we saw, now play it loud, fucker.
That's absolutely perfect, Eddie. Well, thanks very much for your time, bro. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Voodoo Glow Skulls are in Australia from November 27th with Hay Smith. I'll be coming along to the Brisbane show, brother. So if I pop
Come up
in,
and say
let
come
me
up
know.
and say hi, man. Come up and say what's up, man. We're looking forward to it. We're super excited, man, and it's an honor to get to come back. And with the band, it feels like the band has been extra on point lately, so we're looking forward to a good show.